Good morning, students. In the last class, we have learnt the history of transport and what is the need of knowing how far are we going to travel. If we know how far are we going to travel, then we can decide the mode of transport, whether we have to go on foot or we have to use cycle or motorbike or car or boat or aeroplane, etc. But whatever it may be, when we are traveling from one point to other point. The distance between 2 points is known as length. This length is being measured by us. Now we all know how the length is being measured by us, but is the same way was used by the people of ancient times? No. Let us learn how the ancient people used to measure the length. Ancient people mostly they used the body parts as the unit of measuring length. So the units of measuring length in ancient times were length of a foot, width of a finger, and distance of a step. Now we are living in modern era. In ancient times, there were so many different types of civilizations, among which Indus Valley civilization, which you will learn little later in our higher classes, more details about it. The people of Indus Valley civilization, they have used very good measurements of length. And how do we come to know that they have used very good measurements of length? Their usage of good measurements of length is evident, means clear. It is evident from the perfect geometrical constructions which were found in the excavations of Indus Valley civilization. This Indus Valley civilization itself, it was found by excavations. In those excavations of Indus Valley civilization, we could find that the geometrical constructions were very perfect during the Indus Valley civilizations. If they have to be perfect, then they must have used very good measurements of length. Okay. Next, coming to Egypt. In ancient Egypt, to measure the length, they have used a unit called cubit. What is cubit? Cubit is the length from elbow to the fingertips. Cubit is the length from elbow to the fingertips. Ancient Romans, they have measured the length with their pace or steps. Pace means speed. Steps means we know how many steps that they have walked like that. Yard of a cloth. It is the distance between the end of the outstretched arm and the chin. In ancient India, different types of units to measure the length were used. Among them, angle, mutti. These are the units which were used by ancient Indians. Still, even now also, flower sellers they use forearm length as the unit of measurement to measure the length of garlands, etc. In many different parts of the world, foot is used as the unit to measure the length. The usage of cubit, foot, angle, yard, etc. like units for measuring the length, they have caused confusion in measurement because all of these units are distances of the body parts of the persons. And everyone's body parts could be of slightly different in their sizes. When the body parts could be slightly different in their sizes, obviously they will give different lengths. Okay, so usage of cubit, foot, angle, ad, etc. like units for measuring the length, they have caused the confusion in measurement. So, in order to avoid these confusions, people have worked a lot in bringing out certain standard units of measurements. Initially, by French people in the year 1790, metric system of measurement was created. Initially, in 1790, by the French people, metric system of measurement was created. Later, for the sake of uniformity throughout the world, means in order to be accepted by all people of the world, International System of Units or SI units was developed. In this SI units or International System of Units, the unit of length is meter. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters and 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeter or 10 mm. And this meter is being used to measure the smaller lengths. In the case of measuring large distances like distance between two cities, kilometer is used as unit of measurement. 1 kilometer is equal to 1000 meters because kilo means 1000. Kilometer means 1000 meters. So, SI units are the standard units of measurement. For measuring smaller lengths, metric scale is used. Tailors use a tape to measure the lengths of their clothes. Cloth merchant uses meter rod to measure the length of the cloths. To measure the length of different types of objects like different shaped objects, different suitable devices are used. Okay, like tailor is using tape, a cloth merchant is using a meter rod. Okay, a student is using a metric scale. So different people to measure different objects, they are using different suitable devices. For example, to measure the length of a notebook, metric scale of 15 centimeter from geometry box is used by the student. To measure the length of the girth or perimeter, means a covering boundary of the stem, covering boundary of the stem of a tree, tape can be used. You cannot use a scale to measure the girth of a tree, right? Okay. The correct steps in measuring the length. So, while measuring the length of a straight object, you cannot casually measure it. You need to follow certain correct steps. What are those steps? So, in the student angle, let us discuss about it. A student wants to measure the length of a particular box. How a student can measure the length of a particular box? He uses a scale from the geometry box. This scale has to be placed in contact with that object along its length. This is the first one. Along its length, the scale has to be placed in contact with that object. Next, in the case of using a broken scale, sometimes the students may not be having perfect scale, or due to the playing and all, the scale may be in broken condition. In such cases, in the case of using a broken scale where 0 mark is not clear on the scale, where 0 mark is not clear on the scale, then what has to be done? The 0 mark of the scale, as it is not clear, it has to be avoided for measurement, and any other full mark of the scale can be used. So 0 mark has to be avoided and any other full mark of the scale can be used. And this full mark of the scale, it has to be subtracted. It has to be subtracted from the reading of the other end. We will read the other end also na? From that mark. For example, a broken scale is taken. That 0 mark is not clear. And even number 1 also is not clear. From number 2 onwards you have taken. And finally on the scale you have seen it ended at 14. So you need to subtract this 2 because you have taken 2 as the full mark for the beginning point. For the beginning point you have used the 2 as full mark. So final reading was 14. So 14 minus 2 is equal to 12 centimeter is the length of your object. Like that you have to take. And while measuring the length, how you have to see where your eye has to be placed. The eye must be exactly in front of the point where the measurement is to be taken. Right? Because correct position of the eye only gives correct measurement. If correct position of the eye is not maintained, then incorrect measurements are going to be obtained. If correct position of the eye is not maintained, what will happen? Incorrect measurements may be obtained. When a straight object is given, how to measure? You have length. If a curved line is given, a curved object is given, and you are asked to measure the length of it. How can you measure the length of a curved line or curved object? Direct measurement of the length of a curved line using a meter scale is not practically possible. So, the length of a curved line can be measured using a thread. First, what you have to do is, you have to take the thread and you have to make a knot at one end of the thread. Why this knot has to be made? This knot has to be placed at the beginning point. For example, a curved line is taken where you are just marking point A at the beginning point and point B at the end point, like that. So you have to use this knot to place at point A or beginning end. Right? Okay. A knot to be made on the thread near one of its ends. First thing. Since length is the distance between 2 points, the knot of the thread has to be placed on one point, that is point A. Okay. Now, the thread has to be placed along the line of the curved line. Okay. Now, the thread has to be placed along the line taut. Taut means pulled straight. Pulled straight. Okay. Using fingers and thumb. You can make the thread straight using your fingers and thumb up to a small stretch. Entire curved line you cannot make, then it will be made straight. But up to a particular stretch, up to a particular curve, okay, it will be like straight na. Up to that point, you have to make the thread taut or pulled straight. Okay, using what? Fingers and thumb. After just keeping it like that, you have to hold the thread at this point. You have to hold the thread at this point using one hand. Then little more portion of the thread has to be stretched along the curved line using the other hand. By holding at this point, you need to do the another curved, okay, another curve, again stretching, making it taut using other hand. This process has to be repeated till the other end, that is point B of curved line, is reached. After reaching the other end, that is point B, a mark has to be made on the thread where it touches the other end, where the thread is touching the other end. At that, on that point of the thread, okay, a mark has to be made. Now the thread has to be stretched along the meter scale, and the length between the knot, because you have placed the knot in the beginning point of that curved line, so the length between the knot in the beginning and the final mark on the thread has to be measured. Okay, this gives the length of the curved line AB. This is how we have to measure the length of a curved line using a thread. Next, we are going to learn different types of motion. Before learning different types of motion, let us learn what is the difference between moving objects and non-moving objects. Moving objects means objects in motion are called moving objects. But what does it mean by objects in motion? The objects that make some kind of change in their position with time on their own, they are called moving objects. Of course, even electricity induced motion also can be considered as the object that is making movement only, right? The objects that make some kind of change in their position with time on their own are called moving objects, or the objects in motion. A mosquito, a flying butterfly, a walking dog, a running dog, a walking cow, moving hand, your hand, okay, a running horse, crawling small baby, a fish in water, a moving train or moving car, hands of a wall clock, hands of a running wall clock, needle of a working sewing machine, etc., and blades of a working fan. All these things are considered as examples for moving objects or objects in motion. Then, what are non-moving objects or objects at rest? The objects that do not make any change in their position with time, they are called non-moving objects or objects at rest. School bag, will it make any movement? No. A table, will it make any movement? No. House, will it make any movement? No. A stone, until unless you throw, it is not going to make any movement. A wall clock, the hands of wall clock make movement, but wall clock, it won't make any movement. A fan, okay, until unless it is switched on, that too, the blades of the fan will move, but not the fan, right? Okay. All of the different moving objects are objects in motion. Do they make same type of or similar type of motion? Similar type of movement? No. They do not make same kind of motion. Different moving objects make different kinds or different types of motion, about which let us learn in the next class, types of motion. Okay, right. Thank you.